If you've ever asked your child to do something and felt like your words disappear into thin air, you're not alone. Maybe you found yourself repeating the same request over and over until finally frustration takes over and you raise your voice, even though you promised yourself you wouldn't. Every parent knows that sinking feeling that follows guilt, exhaustion, and the question, where am I going wrong? But there is another way to guide your child, one based not on shouting or control, but on understanding how their brain actually works. Imagine for a moment that what we call obedience has less to do with discipline and more to do with biology. This isn't about a magical formula that transforms your child overnight. It's about neuroscience. When you understand how your child's brain functions and how your own reactions influence it, you realize that shouting doesn't just fail, it backfires. It activates the parts of the brain that make genuine understanding impossible. Think of the brain like a three-story house. In the basement lies the reptilian brain, responsible for survival instincts such as breathing, eating, and fleeing danger. The first floor houses the limbic system, the emotional brain, where feelings, memories, and the stress hormone cortisol live. At the very top is the prefrontal cortex, the rational brain. That's the space for reasoning, planning, reflecting, and controlling impulses. Now picture what happens when you yell. The moment your voice rises, your child's brain interprets it as a threat. It's like a fire alarm going off inside that three-story house. The emotional brain floods with cortisol and adrenaline, pushing your child into survival mode. Fight, flight, or freeze. In this state, the rational attic of the brain shuts down completely. The prefrontal cortex, the part that allows reasoning, understanding, and impulse control, disconnects. It is neurologically impossible for a child to listen rationally when fear and stress take over. So, what happens when you shout? You might get quick obedience, yes, but it's not the kind that lasts. Your child isn't following instructions because they understand. They're reacting out of fear. The brain simply wants the threat, your raised voice, to disappear. The behavior stops, but not because of respect or learning. It stops because survival mode took control. Over time, this pattern leaves emotional scars. Each time a child is yelled at, the hippocampus, the memory center of the brain, stores the experience, not in the rational area where lessons are learned, but in the emotional zone tied to fear. The child won't remember why you were upset, they'll remember how they felt when you yelled. Your voice becomes linked to stress and alarm rather than safety and understanding, and the effects reach deeper. Neuroscientific research shows that repeated exposure to stress in childhood, including frequent yelling, can alter brain development itself. Chronic cortisol activation weakens the very prefrontal cortex your child needs to build self control, empathy, and decision making. When that part of the brain is underdeveloped, children grow up struggling to manage emotions, make thoughtful choices, and regulate behavior on their own. It's easy to think, but my child only listens when I yell. And you're partly right. It works temporarily, just like a tourniquet stops bleeding for a moment without healing the wound. Shouting forces short term compliance, not long term understanding. It builds obedience based on fear, not respect. A fearful child behaves only when the authority figure is present, relying on external control instead of developing an internal moral compass. Over time, that reliance on external pressure creates dependency. The child learns to act right only when consequences loom and fails to self regulate when alone. Meanwhile, every outburst erodes the emotional bond between parent and child. Each harsh tone is like placing a small stone in the backpack of your relationship, barely noticeable at first, but eventually heavy enough to strain the connection. When that bond weakens, communication breaks down. Your child stops feeling that you're on the same team, and the distance between you grows silently. Yet the good news is that understanding this mechanism gives you power to change it. Once you see that shouting shuts down the very part of the brain you're trying to reach, you realize there's a more effective, respectful way to be heard, one that builds trust instead of fear, connection instead of resistance. This approach doesn't mean letting your child do whatever they want, it means learning to communicate in a way their brain can actually understand. In the next part, we'll explore what truly happens in a child's developing mind when we demand obedience, and how small shifts in how we speak can transform the relationship entirely. Every parent has experienced it. You give an instruction, repeat it several times, and nothing happens until your patience snaps. You raise your voice, your child reacts for a moment, and afterward, both of you feel drained. Understanding why this happens requires looking inside the developing brain. When you yell, your child's nervous system doesn't hear words, it hears threat. The body's stress alarm switches on, flooding with cortisol and adrenaline. The mind goes into survival mode, fight, flight, or freeze. In that instant, logic is gone. The prefrontal cortex, the brain's reasoning center, disconnects. Listening becomes impossible. What you get is not understanding but fear based compliance. The behavior may stop temporarily, but learning doesn't occur. This is why shouting seems to work at first but fails long term. The child obeys not from comprehension or respect but from wanting the discomfort to end. The hippocampus stores the memory emotionally, not logically. What remains isn't the lesson, but the feeling of stress and fear associated with your tone and presence. Over time, this repeated pattern shapes the child's brain. Chronic stress weakens the very area needed for emotional regulation, empathy, and decision making, the prefrontal cortex. Instead of building self control, constant yelling undermines it. That's why many children behave well only when a parent is watching. They've learned to associate obedience with external control, not inner understanding. It's the difference between doing something because it's right and doing it because you're scared of being caught. This distinction is critical. Fear may stop misbehavior temporarily, but respect sustains cooperation. When the relationship is driven by tension, every new conflict adds another invisible weight to the connection between you and your child. Gradually, communication breaks down. Your child may withdraw emotionally or respond only through resistance, testing your patience even more. This cycle becomes self reinforcing. The more you shout, the less your child listens, and the less they listen, the more you feel the need to shout. The emotional distance grows until both sides are caught in the same loop of frustration and guilt. Breaking this cycle begins with understanding that your child's brain isn't fully developed to respond as an adult would. The prefrontal cortex, which manages impulse control, empathy, and logical thinking, doesn't fully mature until around age 25. For a small child, it's still under construction. That's why a 5-year-old who's told to clean up toys doesn't process the request the way an adult would. You can plan, anticipate, and motivate yourself even when it's boring. Your child can't yet do that. Their attention is anchored in the present moment, drawn to what feels pleasurable now. Telling them, if you don't pick up now, you won't have time for cartoons later, barely registers because later is abstract to them. The immediate satisfaction of play still dominates their brain chemistry. Children also experience what scientists call magical thinking. They believe that wishing or ignoring something might make it go away. When your child closes their eyes instead of cleaning up, they're not defying you intentionally. They're processing reality through a still developing brain. Working memory, the ability to keep information in mind while completing a task, is also limited. If you tell them, go to the bathroom, brush your teeth, and put on pajamas, they'll remember one or two steps, not all three. It's not laziness, it's neurology. The same applies to impulse control. When curiosity strikes, a child's attention jumps instantly. You can say, don't touch the vase 5 times, but every time they walk past it, their sensory system lights up again. Their brain's inhibitory circuits are not mature enough to override the impulse consistently. This isn't disobedience, it's biology. Understanding this doesn't mean giving up on discipline, it means adjusting expectations to reality. Parenting effectively requires meeting your child's brain where it is, not where you wish it were. Teaching becomes possible only when you recognize the limits of development and communicate in ways that align with how children process the world. In the next section, we'll explore how emotional regulation, both yours and your child's, becomes the foundation for real cooperation and how calm, connected communication can achieve what shouting never will. When frustration builds, parents often believe that raising their voice is the only way to be heard. Yet calm communication is far more effective because it speaks to the part of the brain that learns and understands. When a parent stays composed, the child's stress response quiets, allowing the rational brain to engage. In that moment, your child isn't defending themselves, they're listening. The tone, pace, and rhythm of your voice can either open or close the door to cooperation. A calm voice invites connection. A sharp one triggers resistance. One of the most powerful things a parent can do is model emotional regulation. Children don't learn calmness from words, they learn it by observing. When you control your own reactions, you teach them how to handle frustration. If you lose patience but quickly recover, that too becomes a lesson, showing that mistakes can be repaired and emotions can be managed. Instead of reacting in the heat of anger, try pausing. Count to 3, breathe deeply, and lower your tone. It feels counterintuitive, but lowering your voice commands more attention than raising it. Then, name what's happening. I can see you're upset because it's hard to stop playing. This validates emotion without excusing behavior. Once emotions are acknowledged, logic can follow. Repetition with patience builds security. When children sense that correction comes from understanding rather than hostility, they feel safe enough to reflect. Over time, this safety strengthens trust. the foundation of discipline that works. Setting limits calmly doesn't mean being permissive, it means leading with authority grounded in empathy. Children guided this way learn to regulate themselves rather than relying on external control. In the next part, we'll explore specific strategies for communicating effectively, setting consistent boundaries, and transforming daily conflicts into moments of genuine connection. When setting limits, clarity and consistency matter far more than control. Children thrive when they know what to expect and when consequences are predictable, not when they feel fear or confusion. Firm boundaries communicated calmly give them a sense of safety. Think of limits as the guardrails on a bridge. They're not there to restrict freedom, but to allow safe passage. A child without boundaries feels lost, while one raised with consistent, respectful structure learns self discipline. The difference lies in how limits are enforced. Harsh discipline disconnects, while firm kindness teaches. For example, instead of saying, "Boo why, you never listen, no candy all week," try, "I know you'd like candy, but first we'll eat dinner. You can choose to start with vegetables or chicken." This approach acknowledges desire, sets a clear rule, and offers a sense of control within boundaries. When children feel some agency, their brains remain calm and receptive instead of defensive. Consistency is key. If today a behavior brings a consequence but tomorrow it doesn't, the child's brain becomes uncertain and anxious, constantly testing where the line is. Predictability creates peace. The rule doesn't need to be harsh, it needs to be reliable. When a child crosses a boundary, respond without drama. Describe the behavior, show the consequence, and stay calm. The water belongs in the cup, not on the floor. Let's clean it up together. This teaches accountability without shame. Excessive punishment may stop the action temporarily, but damages trust. Gentle firmness teaches responsibility and self awareness. Remember, children break rules to learn where limits are. It's part of development. Your task isn't to eliminate mistakes, but to guide understanding. When boundaries are applied with empathy and consistency, children learn that love doesn't vanish when they err. It simply guides them back toward growth and balance. Before a child can follow rules or manage frustration, they need to see those skills modeled at home. Emotional regulation begins with the adult. A child learns not from lectures, but from observation. How you react when things go wrong, how you speak when you're angry, how you recover after losing patience. If you explode, they absorb that pattern. If you pause, breathe, and respond thoughtfully, they learn self control. Your behavior becomes their blueprint for handling life. When emotions rise, pause before reacting. That brief silence gives your brain time to shift from impulse to reflection. Deep breathing, counting slowly, or briefly stepping away prevents escalation. Saying aloud, "I need a moment to calm down," shows your child that it's okay to feel strong emotions and manage them responsibly. You're not suppressing feelings, you're demonstrating mastery over them. Language also matters. Replace thoughts like, "I can't take this anymore," with, "This is difficult, but I can handle it." The words you choose shape your nervous system's response. Perspective helps too. Ask yourself, will this matter in 5 years? Often the things that trigger anger are small in the long run. Recognizing that helps you respond with balance. Self care isn't optional. A parent running on exhaustion can't regulate effectively. Rest, nourishment, and moments of personal peace strengthen patience and empathy. Emotional calm requires energy. It's not weakness to care for yourself, it's preparation to care for others. Your child won't learn emotional stability through perfection, but through witnessing repair. When you lose your temper, apologize. "I was frustrated and raised my voice. That wasn't right. I'll try again." That moment of humility teaches accountability and empathy far more powerfully than any rule. Through your calm presence, your child learns that emotions are valid, but love and respect always remain stronger. True change in family dynamics happens through small, consistent actions rather than grand gestures. When calm communication and steady boundaries become routine, a sense of harmony starts to grow. The home shifts from a battlefield to a space of learning and connection. This doesn't mean chaos disappears, it means that conflict turns into opportunity. Every disagreement becomes a chance to teach empathy, self control, and cooperation. Children flourish in an environment where they feel seen and heard. Make time each day for undistracted presence, a few minutes where your phone is away and your attention is fully theirs. Ask about their day, listen without correcting, and show genuine curiosity. These moments build emotional safety, the foundation of trust that makes discipline effective. A child who feels secure listens not out of fear, but out of respect and love. Positive reinforcement also strengthens growth. Instead of focusing only on what went wrong, notice effort and improvement. I saw you put your toys away without me asking. That was responsible. Recognition nurtures motivation far better than criticism ever could. It helps children associate discipline with self worth, not fear of punishment. Family rituals, shared meals, walks, bedtime stories anchor connection. They remind children that love is steady, not conditional. Consistency in affection gives them the resilience to handle frustration and failure beyond the home. Finally, remember that no parent gets this right all the time. Growth is a process for both child and adult. What matters most isn't perfection but persistence. Every time you choose calm over shouting, empathy over reaction, and patience over control, you strengthen your child's sense of safety and your own peace of mind. Parenting isn't about raising a flawless child, it's about guiding a human being with compassion, teaching through example, and creating a bond that endures far beyond childhood.